Joining us now, House of Delegates member Rich Anderson. He's from the 51st District. He's a Republican. That's part of Prince William County. Sine Die coming up. All kinds of action happening in the State House. Delegate Anderson, good to have you with us, sir.
Good morning. Good to be with you, John.
Okay, let's start with the Ticketmaster Live Nation monopolist went down in flames yesterday. Dave Albo getting his bill through the House, basically saying if you buy a ticket, doesn't matter what the venue is, whether Dan Snyder wants to claim ownership of it like an airline ticket or Live Nation or Ticketmaster, you have a right to own the ticket. Now it crosses over and it goes to the Senate. How did you stand on that bill?
Well, as with any certain bill, it was a very interesting process, John, because Dave Elbow shepherded it through the floor. So it's gone over to the Senate, and we'll see how she fares there. But he did a fast, you probably saw him on the air, he did a fast two-step on the floor, and it was quite entertaining, and the thing moved out.
I was there, and I was in favor of that, having been on the other end of it, trying to buy tickets and then provide them to my children or other wares. I think if you buy a ticket, you ought to own it. I think it's going to pass in the Senate. I think Senator Stanley is carrying it, and I think Governor McAuliffe is going to sign it into law. So we'll see how that goes. Now,
I think that's how she plays out.
Yes, I do also. Now, there's a lot of other things going on. Tell me, what is Delegate Anderson's top priority right now?
Well, I have two, really, to be honest with you. And what I've got, first of all, is, and you've heard this before, a bill to combat distracted driving in the Commonwealth of Virginia, texting and other behaviors that put Virginians in jeopardy and in harm's way. Last year we had, during calendar year 2016, a full 175 people were killed on Virginia roads as a result of distracted drivers. And on top of that, another 14,700 were injured. And those are numbers that come to me periodically from the Department of Motor Vehicles. They provide that with me because I've been shepherding these bills. But it's an epidemic problem, and I have had almost universal support for the bill. It's tough to write something like that and to move it through the whole process. The bill right now is in the criminal subcommittee of the House Courts of Justice full committee. Chairman Albo formed I guess I should say Chairman Rob Bell, because this was the criminal sub. Rob formed a special subcommittee, signed a group of members to work on it, and I think we've got a bill that we're going to bring back into the sub probably tomorrow, and then she goes to full. But what it does is it puts greater teeth in the bill. We've had law enforcement, Commonwealth's attorneys, and a lot of folks involved in this. So there she goes. We're going to see what happens. But I think this one is going to make it through and put teeth into the law.
All right, now, Delegate Anderson, when you say a distracted driving bill, what you mean is the no texting bill, right? Or is it just completely hands-free phone like they have in New Jersey or Maryland or D.C.?
It is not a hands-free bill. As you probably know, Senator Scott Surville carried a hands-free bill earlier. I like a hands-free bill, but that said, I didn't think it would politically make its way through the General Assembly.
Yeah, it did not.
This session, so therefore I carried an alternative bill that I think is politically palatable, if you want to use those words. And what it does is it addresses the current code, which will remain, and that permits an individual or prohibits, I should say, texting to do email or writing text to do messaging. It does not prohibit, the current code does not prohibit playing games, posting on Facebook, watching YouTube, etc. And so this will scoop up those other uses, but there is a distinct exception to accommodate those who use the GPS function on their phone, because most modern automobiles have the GPS function either built in or on the dashboard with a suction cup. So we have accommodated that in the bill.
Okay, so basically it's a watered-down version of Senator Scott Surville's completely hands-free bill, right? I mean, that's just, if I could bottom line.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
And it doesn't take in all kinds of distracted driving. How in the world can a human or can a legislature really outline all the distracted behaviors like combing your hair, putting on makeup, shaving, etc.?
Right. Well, I think shaving and driving probably not a good idea. Probably not a good idea.
But I have seen it.
Yeah, shaving, driving, yes, putting on makeup. Sometimes during the 2013 campaign, when Ken Cuccinelli was going to events in the evening, I always thought, he should be shaving in the car. No question about that. But I'm not sure if you could put that in there. Okay, we got a lot of other things I want to get your take on coming up. With a single vote yesterday, the House subcommittee torpedoed over 20 proposed Virginia constitutional amendments. Have any comment on that, sir?
Well, I did not go into that meeting, so I'm not certain which sorts of bills are on their docket, but I'm presuming that they, for instance, considered such issues as Steve Landis's resolution concerning the factoring in of political considerations in redistricting. Was that in there?
Yes.
Okay. I'll tell you where I am on that. I am certainly not in favor of an independent redistricting commission because of two reasons. Number one, I think it is humanly impossible to achieve. We've seen the politicization of the courts one way or the other, liberal or conservative. We've seen the politicization of the American media. And so I think that one party or another will get control of an independent redistricting commission. It will simply be masked. We will have traded one process for another, which is masked in greater detail. What I'm in favor of is for staying with what I think the founders originally intended, and that is they intended for legislatures to do the redistricting, just as they intended legislatures to levy taxes on the citizens of the state. So I am in favor of factoring hard and fast criteria into the rule set, into our body of law in Virginia that lays out how that's to be done. I'm not the wizard to write all that language, but in general and conceptually, that's how I think we ought to do it.
Okay, Delegate Rob Bell, once again, pushing for the Tebow bill. Looks like he's getting a little more traction this session than he's had in the past. How do you stand on that?
Oh, I support that, and I'll tell you why. I've got the numbers laying in front of me from the Virginia Department of Education. I have just a sneeze below 2,000 homeschoolers in my district. I've spoken at their high school graduations where they cram in 500 people. I've presented trophies at their football league where they have hundreds and hundreds of people present. They have all the look and feel and outcomes of public education. And so, therefore, I believe we need to accommodate them. They're laying money on, their parents are laying money on the table, and therefore they ought to participate.
Well, I would assume if it ever got to McAuliffe's desk, he'd veto it. So it's kind of frustrating, some of these things. Even when they gain traction, you're not going to be he's going to veto it. You can't override the veto, but you have to go forward with it, right?
Yeah. I mean, why cancel? Why avoid the act of public policy making on the premise that a governor is going to veto? That's the normal friction that exists between two branches of government that are supposed to counterbalance each other. So I say, damn the port torpedoes, full speed ahead. Great work by Rob Bell.
I love your attitude. Okay, let's get to Airbnb. Senator Bill Stanley from Manita, Virginia, and Tommy Norman going crazy over Airbnb, putting in two bills in the Senate, basically that say if you're renting out your property or a room on Airbnb and you're not following the rules and you're not paying your taxes, or if you're renting it out in an area that has not approved it, you're going to pay a $10,000 fine. That's big dollars. Some people saying, hey, if I own the house, I should be able to do what I want. Other people saying, wait a minute, you got to play in the same field that hoteliers do. And by the way, that's why you have local governments setting their own zoning laws. You might not want 5 or 6 people coming in and out in your neighborhood. How do you stand on this?
Well, that's one I haven't spent expended a lot of brain cells thinking about, but I tell you, $10K sure sounds like a steep fine to be levied for something like that. I kind of think we can have a general rule set at the state level, just as we do for some of these new business models such as Uber and Lyft, and then let localities do most of their oversight of all this. So the best government is the least government, and that government which is local in focus.
Okay, let's get to President Trump's travel ban over the weekend. The only Muslim member of the House of Delegates, Sam Razul, made a speech on the floor yesterday from Roanoke condemning it, saying that it was anti-Thomas Jefferson, anti-American, all the same things that the Democrats are saying. You want to weigh in on this?
Well, the issue is, to be honest with you, one of national security.
Right.
As a guy that spent 30 years in a military uniform, I do think that I have a couple of creds to speak about national security issues, and that's what this is all about. It is not a permanent ban. I would never support a permanent ban. I have a mosque that sits just down the street from me in my district, have close interpersonal relationships, attend many of their events, support their activities, because they are my constituents and we are neighbors. That said, this is a temporary pause. It's been wrapped up in all sorts of rhetoric on both sides, but it is a very temporary pause. I think that probably that it should have been thought through a little bit better on the part of administration officials so that we didn't have any unintended consequences. But they're working through that. But the bottom line here is there is a national security threat. For 30 years, I had a top secret SCI clearance, and I had access to some compartmented information that tells me we have not been on our game for the last 20 years or more regarding this, and we need to get on the top of our game. We're talking about the national survival of the United States.
Okay, so it sounds like you're in favor of what President Trump did. But by the way, what he did and how he did it is exactly what he said he was going to do during the campaign. So I kind of find some of the Democrats' arguments to be surreal. It's like, I guess they thought when he got elected, he would be like all the other Republicans that get elected president who don't do what they say they're going to do or something. It's just unclear to me what their expectation was. But he said, I'm going to ban entry into the United States from countries that have a high propensity for harboring and exporting terrorists. And he also said, I'm not going to tip my hand. I'm not going to tell anybody what I'm going to do, so I can't let the enemy prepare. So what did he do that was not exactly what he said he would do?
Well, I can say one thing about President Trump and also about President Obama. They both executed in office as they predicted they would as candidates. Now, obviously, we have 8 years of an Obama record to look at, and he did just exactly what he said he was going to do during his 2008 campaign. We've only got a week of Trump, so let's see how she plays out over the next few months and obviously over at least the next 4 years. But the bottom line, this is a national security issue. It is a temporary and strategic pause. That's all it is.
All right, that's going to be the final word. As always, I want to thank House of Delegates member Richard Anderson being with us. And again, Delegate, tell our audience about your service to the United States, what you did and how long you were there and all that.
Well, I'm a native of Roanoke, grew up there, went to Virginia Tech, and in 1979, when I graduated, off I went to the United States Air Force, spent 30 years there. The first half of my career, I worked in the missile and space career field. My first job, I went underground with the launch codes, the nuclear launch codes, and the keys to a Titan II intercontinental ballistic missile. Later moved to Minuteman II intercontinental ballistic missiles. Then, as I got more senior, worked at the staff level for managing the United States ICBM force. Then abruptly, the Air Force moved me over to a career field, which was Air Force International Affairs. I did that for 15 years, and I specialized in countries located in Asia and the Pacific. I was the director of the Asia Pacific Division in the Office of the Secretary of the Air Force, and so a number of world cultures and the international community. I love it. I love traveling in that region of the world, understand those cultures, and just really enjoy working with them.
Well, Delegate Anderson, it sounds like you know just a little bit, like you said, about national security. I want to thank you for your time today. Great update. Good to have you with us. House of Delegates member Rich Anderson, representing the 51st District. He's a Republican. This part of Prince William County. Rich, thanks for being with us, man.